We have 7 News investigator John Ferrugia joining us now. And John, not many people on Colorado's death row right now. And with our current governor, it is unlikely any of them would be put to death anytime soon.
That's right, Ann. There are 3 people on death row right now. Robert Ray, if you might remember him, he ordered the killings of 2 witnesses who are going to testify against him in another murder charge. And so he contacted Sir Mario Owens. Mario Owens was the trigger man who killed the innocent witnesses in this case. And of course, that was Javad Marshall Fields and Vivian Wolf. And finally, there's Nathan Dunlap, and he's been on death row the longest. In 1993, you might remember, he was a disgruntled employee of the Chuck E. Cheese restaurant, and he murdered 4 employees. Now, Dunlap was slated for execution, but he was granted an indefinite stay by Governor John Hickenlooper, who cited Dunlap's mental condition, his current mental condition. The governor didn't remove Dunlap from death row, if you recall, but he will not let him be executed during his final term in office. So even if James Holmes is eventually sentenced to death, and at this point it's unclear whether that's going to happen, it would likely be years before his appeals would be exhausted, and even then, and depending on the governor, he may never be executed.
All right, John, thank you for that. So it's in the jury's hands. How long would this penalty phase last?
You know, it's going to depend on how many witnesses each side chooses to call. The prosecution, much like what they did in the last phase that we saw, is likely to call several of the victims to testify about the emotional aspect of what happened. The defense, of course, is going to be putting on a lot of witnesses. We heard several days ago it could be some of his teachers, his childhood teachers, family, friends, that kind of thing. I think the best guess is probably 2 to 3 weeks, although certainly it could be longer than that.
So if given life, what does it mean for the defendant?
If given life, he's going to be put in a Colorado Department of Corrections facility. In other words, a prison. He's not going to be put into a mental health hospital. He'll be put into a prison. Given his notoriety and given the gravity of the offenses, he's likely going to spend the rest of his life in solitary confinement. In other words, with very little, if any, human contact outside of just normal meal delivery and medical care and that type of thing. So oftentimes we hear that prison is sort of a cakewalk, that they have access to many different positive things. And for Mr. Holmes, regardless, it's simply not going to be the case.
We just discussed the governor, who has made it clear he's not a proponent of the death penalty, and the governor just issued a statement, and here's how it reads. This has been an emotional and difficult time for the victims, their families, loved ones, and friends. My hope is that this step brings some peace to each of them and begins the healing process for all of Colorado. We have great respect for the work of the jury and are so grateful for their service and commitment.